Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Product Unfiltered. Today we have Ravi Srinivasan, a veteran cybersecurity executive who has spent multiple decades, I would say, in leading and building security products at enterprise scale. Currently, Ravi is building LangGuard.AI, which is focused on solving one of the biggest challenges in the AI adoption scale. In terms of how do you actually safely govern autonomous AI agents once they start making decisions and take action in enterprises? So, if I have to put it in easy terms, if AI is becoming the new workforce, Ravi and the team is defining the rules of how to make it trustworthy. That's one of the bigger challenges and things which we're going to talk about in the pod. Ravi, welcome to the pod. I'm so happy to have you here and learn so many things from you in the space of AI security, in general enterprise, and so on and so forth.
Thank you, Rahul. Great to be with you today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ravi. So before we talk more about AI security, Ravi, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? Talk a bit about your background. What are you building right now? A bit on what LangGuard AI is all about. How did you start thinking about the problem, and how do you see the landscape evolving?
Sure. Yeah, let me start with my background. I've been a product manager in cybersecurity for over 25 years. The joys of being a product manager is you get to define solutions in the marketplace as transitions happen in the market. I built a set of products in the early days of cloud adoption, then moving capabilities from on premise to the cloud. And then we built SaaS products, right, in the marketplace and SaaSifying existing capabilities, as it's called. And then now we're building AI products, hopefully not AI, just slapping AI on existing capabilities. So it's been a great journey over the last 25 years building capabilities in the marketplace. And the most recent now investment in company that we're building, I'm a co-founder of a company called LangGuard.AI, and we'll learn more about it as we spend more time on this podcast.
hmm That's amazing, Ravi. And when we started talking about inviting you on the podcast, one of the things which I really wanted to understand more from you was your experience with IBM. You mentioned that it was a pivotal experience in your journey as well, building the IAM layer for IBM. Do you want to talk a bit about what was that, and how was your experience early days building that IAM layer there?
Yeah, thank you. Especially, I started at IBM. I came to IBM as an outsider. I was a in the semiconductor business, building chips and helping companies like Texas Instruments and Synopsys. So I came in as a product manager from the outside, where IBM was saying, "Hey, look, we want to invest in security, building identity and access management as a new layer in the marketplace." And as a new product manager, what is the first thing you do? You don't go talk to engineering, but you talk to customers, you talk to the field, people who are out in the field doing solution engineering, sales engineering. And it was great insights. We saw early days of companies setting up websites and not knowing who is really coming in. There used to be this old joke of, can you differentiate between a human or a dog logging into the website? And then we built very highly scalable single sign-on capabilities for websites. We had financial services companies adopt single sign-on as a web single offering. We also saw organizations then connecting from enterprises in B2B setting with federated single sign-on. So that was the early days of even defining standards in the marketplace, right? And the joys of being a product manager is you always find that problem to solve in the marketplace and then get the right team together to do it. It's not about the how the solution needs to work, but it's the what that solution is that needs to be defined, right? And so building those early days of single sign-on capabilities, today it's still the foundation 25 years later for every organization in the marketplace.
That's very true. I mean, I would say that's like the pivotal pillar of anything around the enterprise. Like, how do you give authorization and authentication to someone? That's the core piece of it. Yet that's the exciting piece, right, Ravi? When you mentioned that those were still the early days of how you were shaping the identity space in general for enterprises. And I would say, into some extent, we are again in the same phase of early days of defining how security will evolve in the enterprises when it comes to the world of AI. Any parallel which you see, which you saw in the early days of defining identity to now defining security for agents here?
Yeah, there are definitely parallels in the marketplace, Rahul. If you look at the first parallel is early adopters in the marketplace are quickly trying to identify, how do I define what the agent is, what does it have access to, and what's the duration for the access, and most importantly, then do I audit it at the end, like the three A's of identity, right? Authenticate it, authorize it, and audit it. That parallel still exists in agents as it existed in humans before. Then there was talking about machines and things like non-human identities, and now that's evolved to agents. And so a lot of parallels of early days of defining the AAA for humans are now being applied for agents as well, right?
Hmm.
At least from a similarity standpoint, that is true. But at the same time, there are things that are different for agents, right? Agents by or AI by definition has agency of its own. And so now when you have a thinking capability instrumented inside your business workflows, what does the AAA look like
Yeah.
for that environment, right? And so as while there are parallels of similar things, there are certainly new changes and differences that need to happen in the agentic world. The second thing I'd mention is early days, about 25 years ago, when we started identity and access management, there were no standards. We were defining the basic standards as we were deploying these capabilities in the marketplace. So capabilities were introduced, then we're like, hey, we need a more common way of interacting with other companies. Why don't we standardize on early days of SAML, early days of OAuth tokens, early days of being able to define those standards? I see that similar activity happening today now as companies are trying to think through, how do I look at securing AI? How do I put some standards way of adopting so that I'm not just tied to one way of doing things with agentic frameworks?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that alludes to one of the very common pattern which I also observe in my day-to-day workday, right? Because with the way these agents are built, everyone has their own custom layer on top of it. And as a product manager, now the challenge which I face on my day-to-day is, how do I build a universal solution that fits into every custom possible solution which exists? And this problem spans across the layer of security, right? Like you pick anything, whether you are trying to discover problems, detect problems, or protect your security layer. How do you build things which spans across any custom solution? This is one of the patterns, and as you mentioned, like there needs to be standardization in the space. We are still in the early days. So any particular thoughts there? What, how are you seeing the industry shaping out?
Absolutely. Look, I think it's going to be a challenge because a lot of infrastructure players have all introduced capabilities to the market, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have cloud platform vendors, you have data platform vendors, you have frontier AI platform vendors. They all want to be able to build the base capabilities. And the base capabilities are now called harnesses, they're called registries, they're called gateways. And you put all these components together, customers are certainly looking at how to harmonize across all these multiple silos and adopt them in the enterprise. Because the reality in the enterprise is they're not going to be monolithic,
Mm-hmm.
one cloud platform, one data platform, and one frontier models, right? They are going to be heterogeneous in nature. I think the good news, at least comparing my past experience to now, is the frontier lab folks have done a good job of delivering capabilities on a single API.
Mm-hmm.
So at least that's a good news. This wasn't the case 20 years ago, where every application layer had its own set of custom way of integrating. So that's certainly a good starting point. The second starting point is to look for control points in your delivery of capabilities. If you're able to build capabilities with control points, like integrate with gateways, integrate with the harnesses, I think that gives you an ability to at least get a broad set of solutions out to customers. But obviously, there's always going to be a long tail of integrations
Mm-hmm.
that one
Yeah.
has to build in a roadmap.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Actually, the layer of complexity goes in as you advance in your journey as well. So that is true. But okay, maybe we'll take a step back, and for the audience, we'll help them understand from Ravi, how is the cybersecurity space evolved, right? Everyone talks about AI security being a complete different paradigm altogether when it comes to security. Maybe not. Some of the parallels from cybersecurity will translate into AI security. So think of us as 15 years. Like, how do we give prompt to Chat GPT or any of the tools? think of me as a 15-year-old and help me understand what were the key challenges in the cybersecurity world and how does those translate into AI security, or what are the top things on your mind when you talk about AI security?
No, very good question, Rahul. Let's step back, right? Look at cybersecurity in the marketplace. It's billions of dollars being spent on whether you're protecting the endpoint, you're protecting what's happening on the network, you're protecting the data, you're protecting the application. It was always designed around something that needs to be secured, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the traditional approach to cybersecurity was defense in depth. I will put something on the network, I will put something on the endpoint, I'll allow the user to get into the enterprise, but then I will watch what they're doing, I will protect the data. And yet we continue to see breaches happen, we continue to see compromises happening inside the enterprise. So that defense in depth layer of traditional cybersecurity was viewed towards things that are being deployed in a predictable manner.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a laptop that is a Mac machine, I know exactly what operating system it's using, I know what applications are running on it, and so I have to put some capabilities on the endpoint to protect it.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's look at AI. AI is being used not just as a deterministic capability, but it is being now used as a probabilistic capability to reimagine a lot of business workflows. So that
Mm-hmm.
same application that was running on your endpoint or running on your cloud, I'm now designing it with AI, saying, could it deliver a 10x outcome? Could it deliver a 100x outcome?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a thinking capability that I'm putting into an application. When that happens, cybersecurity that was designed for a deterministic approach now has to evolve, right? How do I now secure something that's constantly thinking and sensing, and no two results are going to be the same?
Same.
I
Yeah.
give it a prompt, I get one answer. 5 minutes later, I give it a similar prompt and I get something else, right? So now, how do you secure that capability? So the transition that's happening in the marketplace is moving cybersecurity from securing through defense in depth to now securing a probabilistic capability.
Mm-hmm. And how does it look like in reality? Like when you say cybersecurity protecting in depth, it's basically you bring security by controlling the code or controlling the network, right? But now, as you mentioned, you are trying to control a system that can reason, and it is in its true form probabilistic. That's the value, and that's the, I would say, that's the pro and the con of being in the AI world, right? Like it gives you the freedom to reason and debate and think more, but at the same time, thinking is not the same every time you think differently. So how does it look in the lay of the land when you speak to your customers, when you're speaking to peers in the industry? What are some of the practical implications of it? Like if you can draw some parallel, that'll help us understand it a bit better.
Absolutely. I mean, look, build a mental model, right? Of I have an agent or an AI that is being implemented in a business workflow.
Mm-hmm.
That capability, there is a pre-reasoning step, all the inputs that go into getting the workflow to do something, right? And then there's a post-reasoning step. The reasoning capability came up with an answer, and that's the post-reasoning. So you have a mental map of pre-reasoning, the agent does its reasoning, and post-reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
What we're seeing with organizations that we're talking to is, if you take that mental map and say, I need to set some guardrails in the pre-reasoning step. Guardrails tell the agent, saying, look, this is what you're scoped to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is hygiene, that is best practices, that's a good thing to do. I mean, you should let the agent know what the identity to use, tell the agent that you have only access to these type of data to work on, and then tell the agent this is what you're expecting it to work on. Right? That's the pre-reasoning guardrails. What we're seeing now is that's one step that needs to happen. The second step that needs to happen is post-reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
At the post-reasoning, we're seeing how organizations will take the outcome. The outcome is probabilistic, but take the outcome and make sure that that outcome meets the business requirements.
Okay.
If the outcome is inbounds, great, let it go. If the outcome is out of bounds,
Mm-hmm.
block it.
Okay.
If the outcome is in the middle gray area, bring a human in the loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so if you think of every workflow needing this sort of pre-reasoning and a post-reasoning security mental map, I think that's what needs to happen as organizations evolve their cybersecurity posture.
Hmm. That's actually a helpful mental model in terms of breaking the pieces down. So where in this piece, Ravi, the whole idea of governance fits into the place, right? Because so firstly, break down the word governance. What do you exactly mean by that? And then how does it fit in the AI security space?
Yeah. So an organization uses a business process to get to a certain outcome, right? So I have a line of business, I have a workflow that I put into work, and it's doing what it's supposed to do, right? Governance is the ability for an organization to say, hey, I have put this business workflow in place, and I'm confident I can trust that that thing is only doing what it's designed to do. So essentially, I can go to the business and say, hey, I put this workflow into production and it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
That act of being able to validate, verify, and demonstrate is governance. The traditional approach to governance is there's always a committee that defines high level policies and that says to the business unit, make sure that you are putting this workflow into production without violating customers' regulatory demands, without violating the customer's trust, without violating the partner's capabilities. So it's all about the top level defining it, and that was designed for a human world, right? That human world was said, okay, you gave me 10 policies to make sure I meet. I'm meeting those 10 policies. I do a survey, send it back, and everybody's happy that the organization is governing their workflow. Now imagine this agent that is thinking on its own, deployed into a workflow. That whole human based governance breaks down.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have to think about governance more at runtime. At the time
Mm-hmm.
that the agent is doing work, I got to be able to take those 10 policies, the 10 policies have never changed. If I'm in
Mm-hmm.
business selling some product, those 10 policies are still the same. But how do I take the 10 policies and make sure at runtime that the agent is designed and it's working as it was intended to?
Hmm. Okay. That's a exciting thing to think about, right? And maybe because a lot of audience are product builders, and I'm sure a lot of us will be struggling through the same area, that this is a very unknown charter for everyone around. Everyone have ever thought about problems from the landscape of how would humans work with it, or how would humans break it or make it work. What is your mental model when you are thinking about building solutions for agents? How are you thinking the boundaries of thoughts which you have, like how do you know what will happen, what will not happen? Because this is new for all of us, right? So what is your mental model while building solutions for agents?
So, great question, right? My mental model is I want to leverage AI to its fullest potential,
Mm-hmm.
which means I don't want to constrain the AI from what it can reason. So my view is let the agent be put into a workflow and not constrain it while it's reasoning. Let the reasoning happen, but make sure that I'm in a position to be able to define guardrails for pre-reasoning and define capabilities for enforcing actions at post-reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
That way, I get the best of both worlds. I get the best of leveraging the AI for what it was designed for doing. I want the 10x productivity of the AI imagining how to get the goal done, right? But then work on making sure that when the outcome comes out, that I'm not violating those 10 policies that I described early on. And
Mm-hmm.
that I can do in a runtime capability.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's actually a good way to put it. Like you're still giving the complete flexibility of the system to do what it's meant to do, but at the same time keeping the control to ourselves in terms of what needs to go out of my business.
Exactly, exactly. Yep.
Okay. That's a good mental model actually. That helps. So let's take an example, Ravi, and then you help me understand in this whole process what I'll define where all you see security gaps today. We'll take an example which all of us go through. In every enterprise, I'm assuming today Codex, Cloud Code, or one of these harnesses are being used by every single employee. Now, let's say I'm an employee. I use Cloud Code day in, day out to get my things out. I'm using it to improve my productivity, the quality of output I bring to the table. Now, for me to leverage Cloud Code and generate output which goes to deliver something to my customer, there are a lot of things happening in this whole supply chain. So, help me understand from a security expert What are the things which you see concerning and you would want enterprises to think about, where every single employee in the workplace is using these tools and these harnesses to get more productive?
Yeah. So when you're looking at this scenario where it's a user interacting with an AI to generate value, right? In that scenario, there are three things that always is sort of foundational for AI security. One is the identity. Is the AI always working on behalf of you to do what it's supposed to do? That's sort of the identity piece, right? The second piece is data, making sure that there's you're going to be providing a lot of data to AI to do its job,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then it's going to also generate some more data, and it's going to be delivering generated data as well, in addition to what you gave it, right? So ensuring that the data, the outcome of that AI activity is again meets your business requirements before you start to share it more broadly. So think of the notion of data loss prevention reimagined for agents, right? So
Mm-hmm.
identity and data are two core elements of security capabilities. The third one is capabilities of threat. What happens with an AI system is just as we are using AI to be more productive, the bad actors are looking for using AI to be destructive.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so they're always looking at not breaking your model, not breaking the data, but trying to figure out how to compromise your access to then do harm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so ensuring that there are capabilities to make sure that the AI user interaction with the AI is always safe, right? And so those are sort of three core foundational capabilities. Identity, data, and safety are sort of the three capabilities when you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about user interaction with agents or user interaction with AI.
Mm-hmm. That's nice. Okay, so let's talk about the first piece, the identity piece, right? A lot of people think about, hey, why can't my AI just have my identity? What is the problem with that?
So there are AI gets used in multiple scenarios. In the scenario where it's always attached to a human being, where an AI is being used by only the user and that's about it, you're certainly giving the agent your identity to do work on behalf of you. What happens in when agent starts to reason on its own and starts to look around inside your enterprise and says, hey, if you want me to go interact with this database, I found another credential that I could use and be a super user and go delete the database. It could do it, and there's no traceability. So, in order to uniquely trace agent activities, you got to be able to attach an identity to it, a unique identity, so that you know that the work was being done. First time it was done on behalf of you, second time it did it on its own.
On its own. Okay. And how are enterprises looking at this problem? I mean, this is a very exciting space, right? There's a lot of discussions happening around non-human identity, zero trust layer, point in time identity, and whatnot. And there's so many terms coined around. For someone who is not in this space, honestly, it feels very scary when these terms are coined because there's no clue what's happening. But it's at the same time very exciting to talk about and learn more. What are some of the practical applications, or how are enterprises dealing with these problems now?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're really good at creating acronyms and creating a lot of terminologies to define a problem, right? But what I would say is organizations are looking at implementing identity in a way that agentic activities become traceable, accountable, and auditable. Think of those sort of way in which it's saying, if I want to be, if I'm in a position to trace every interaction of a human with the identity attached to an AI, and then the AI then does something with the data and tools inside your enterprise, being able to trace that. How do you do that? There are capabilities to do it. There are standards available in the marketplace to do it. Same thing for accountability. There is a simple sort of a long time problem that all of us enterprises have faced, which is called segregation of duty or separation of duty violations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where in finance, it's very popular, where you don't want the same person approving an invoice also being able to generate the check, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a human operation, that is typically done by two different people. You certify that those two people are not related, and it's separation of duty. In some cases, some companies will say, yeah, but I don't have too many people, so I'm going to allow this person to do both. But I'm going to sign off saying the risk that that person is doing both is low,
Mm-hmm.
and that activity is typically done on a sampling basis. Once a year, I audit and say, yep, this person approved 1,000 invoices. And during those 1,000 invoices, they didn't write their own check, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now think of that process reimagined with AI.
Mm-hmm.
Now AI could, instead of doing 1,000 invoices, the AI is so powerful it can do 10,000 invoices
Yeah.
a year. But the agent is also has the power to be able to go issue checks as well. So
Hmm.
now that sampling based effort to say this agent is accountable for doing both pieces can't really work in the agentic world. So you got to be able to, at runtime, ensure that that agent can be checked every run of it, that it is not doing both activities in that specific given execution of the agent. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the accountability piece. And then the auditability is certainly being able to trace and demonstrate that you are in control of this agentic enterprise.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's also this fundamental discussion happening around, Ravi, where people say, hey, will there be a world where we'll need security solution providers to be there, or these frontier labs will bake in such a good level of security layer baked in that we might not need a lot of what people are offering in the market? And then there is a third school of thought where people are saying, hey, building code, it's so easy. Do I really need to outsource any of those things, or can I build everything in house? With all of these different thoughts, when you are building products and shipping products, how do you deal with this scenario?
Yeah, I think so. Two main points that I'll make. Right, one is any enterprise today is going to remain a heterogeneous environment. Organizations are going to use multiple data platforms, multiple cloud platforms, multiple frontier lab capabilities, and so I see cybersecurity as an essential capabilities that is going to be applied to a heterogeneous environment. That to me is a separate industry that will continue to grow and be a very thriving market in the marketplace, right? The second part of it is, in the cloud world, we used to use the terminology of shared responsibility. We used to talk about cloud platform. We had the same conversation 15, 10 years ago, right? Is cloud so powerful that they could do everything foundational in the capabilities? So why do we need cybersecurity, right? The cloud vendors were the first to say, no, it's a shared responsibility, right? Why? Because they don't want to own the data.
Mm-hmm.
Data is customers' environment. We got customers' responsibility. They don't want to be in the position to have to like deal with answering questions like, why did I lose the data? Why did I destruct it or misuse it, and so on, right? That so to me, the same problem exists in the AI, the world of AI, right? AI, one of the first things that we all as product managers have to attest to is saying, no, we're not training our AI capabilities with your data, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
only building capabilities and then delivering it to you to get to a better outcome in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Okay.
for the reasons for trust and safety, you need cybersecurity to be a separate capability outside of the existing control capabilities that are getting deployed in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And when you say trust, what is your definition of trust when it comes to AI? Is it better explainability, better accountability, or what it is? Like, how do you define
It's
trust
it's
in an AI
it's
world?
predictability, right? So one of the biggest fears right now that I hear from any customer that I speak to is, so many vendors are going to customers saying, I have AI enabled my capability company, right? Product. But they can't, as a product manager, stand behind that capability and say with level of assurance that the outcome delivered by that product by making it an AI enabled is predictable.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't tell you that I'm going to deliver predictable results, how is the organization going to trust your capability?
Hmm. Okay. Hmm. That's a fair way to put it. I think I think I align with that. But what would be one use case, Ravi, in your world, which you would say, hey, this use case I definitely want AI to completely revolutionize, or this, and one use case which I think AI should never touch in my life or in my world of whatever I do.
Look, AI is powerful for delivering repeatable capabilities, thinking about bringing in large amount of information, digesting it, understanding it, and delivering it, synthesizing it and delivering it. So I see, especially in cybersecurity, being able to do vulnerability management, right? Being able to look at the problem space and saying, what is the surface of vulnerability that can be quickly understood and then recommend how do you then fix it. To me, that's a powerful use case for AI. And
Mm-hmm.
we already saw the signs of it with the launches that happened in the last 3, 4 months. And it's going to continue to evolve, right? There'll be alternative capabilities that come along that may be cheaper, faster, better. That's great, right? I mean, this is one of the problems that we've faced as an industry for 3 decades now, right? Each vendor saying, yep, I've tested mine. I have a long tail of vulnerabilities to fix, but I've fixed the ones that are high priority. Rest of them are not really that risky, so take the risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now that's surfacing up because the bad actors are using AI too to compromise these systems. So vulnerability management, fantastic problem for AI to go solve. Right?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to governance, that is a harder problem for AI to solve. And even if you try to use AI, you're not going to get the predictable answers. You're not going to be able to get the trustworthy answers that governance needs. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, that is an area that you would need an external capability outside of agents to be, or AI to be able to govern that agentic workflows.
Hmm. Yeah, that's exactly the piece I think and ponder more about, because when we talk about the scale of AI, we definitely need AI to secure AI. That is a clear hypothesis. But to what extent? Like there's a constant meme which goes on, right? That hey, a product manager writes a requirement using AI. Engineers consume the requirements using AI. They build things with AI. QA tests it with AI. Users uses it with AI. So it's basically AI playing with AI in all the loops. Where do we stop this bug in the security space? Like there has to be a balance of hey, these are the things I can do with AI, and these are the things where still we need to have either human in the loop, or what's the right balance of doing things.
Yeah. So look, I think we are at that early stage of experimenting, right? I remember early stages of building cloud-based capabilities, right? We were all excited about the fact that we could do faster iterations and bring up a container and have this capability running on it, which made my job easier as a product manager to go and show and tell. Right before that, on-premise products, there was no way for me to show and tell.
Mm-hmm.
I now with cloud-based capabilities, I was able to show and tell the product's capabilities, right? So that's what we're seeing today with that early days of since AI can define requirements. You use AI as a product manager to define requirements. Engineering is building it. You're putting all the pieces together to get to an art of the possibility,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. That's a step one of any product evolution. But there are multiple steps afterwards. And the multiple steps afterwards are how do you now take that and operationalize it for an enterprise?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to vibe code a product and throw it over the wall and get customer to pay for it, right? You're only going to get customers only going to pay for it if the outcome is going to be predictable. It can scale, it can perform, it can work across my heterogeneous environment.
Mm-hmm.
All those things require us as humans to work with AI
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
to get to that level of capability that can then be launched into a customer's environment, and you can actually get paid for it too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's the thing. I mean, a vibe coding tool can be a good proof of value, but to actually make it an enterprise grade solution, it still requires a lot of sophistication around it. That's true. So, in your conversations with customers today, Ravi, what is one thing which you try to explain to security teams out there, but they're still not understanding the depth of how should they be thinking about it in terms of AI security?
That's a really good question. So I think what I'm hearing is how people translate you need AI to secure AI or
Mm-hmm.
you need AI to govern AI. I see a lot of organizations thinking that solution providers can come up with agents like a guardian agent or a judging agent and that'll do the magic. And then when I have the conversation with them in this model, the mental model that I described earlier, right? Pre-reasoning, reasoning, post-reasoning, and the fact that if there's something that's reasoning, you can't stick another judging LLM, burn through more tokens, and
Yeah.
take a probabilistic system and have a probabilistic system guarding it.
Mm-hmm.
That's an aha moment that I see from a lot of organizational security leaders. Is they're like, wait, that's a good point. I can't have a probabilistic system govern another probabilistic system. I need some deterministic way of governing this so that I can get predictable outcome and trust the outcome.
Hmm. That's fair. I think that's where your mental model of still give the flexibility to the system and keeping the control to you, it will be the right model, I think, to crack that space.
That's at least our belief.
No, I think fundamentally, I think most of us should be aligned with that approach in terms of how do we think we get the maximum out of the AI, but at the same time keeping controls at our hand so that we know which knob to pull in when to make the whole environment secure. So
Absolutely.
Ravi, we talked about a lot of things, and as we are approaching towards the end of the podcast, a few things which I want to understand as a leader. How do you see the whole security space gonna evolve in next 5 years? Like in terms of how do you see people working in the security space evolving? How the role itself will evolve in the security space, and how will the mindset of people in the working in the security space will evolve in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think so. My view in the marketplace is we're going to quickly move away from risk based approach to a little bit more trust based approach, because we all grew up in cybersecurity as risk management professionals.
Mm-hmm.
We've always said, oh, the as long as the highest risk is addressed, yes, we will have time to address the other risky things that'll show up. Maybe it shows up occasionally, maybe it shows up at a lower priority, right? That is how we all grew up as security professionals. To me, as AI gets embedded into business workflows, AI gets used in daily activities, we have to move to become more of a trust professionals. How do we ensure that we provide some level of predictability to this probabilistic world and manage that for the business?
Mm-hmm.
That's sort
That's
of a very high level view of what I see.
mm-hmm.
In certain functional areas of cybersecurity, it's a really exciting time to be a cybersecurity professional.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had colleagues of mine who were in security operations centers for decades doing work, and they would be burnt out after 2 years of doing that role.
Mm-hmm.
But now, can you imagine being a security operations professional with AI as your sidekick? I
Yeah.
mean, you could do a lot of exciting work in cybersecurity's security operations center with an AI co-pilot, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's an exciting time to be a cybersecurity professional, exciting time to be a product manager building solutions in the
Mm-hmm.
marketplace. But I think the shift in thinking has to move from risk based approach to more of a predictable trust based approach.
Hmm. Okay. So we need to start thinking of how actually trust-based mindset's gonna work rather than risk-adverse mindset will gonna work.
Yeah.
That's good. One of the notions which I see people have who's not in the security space is it's a echo chamber and so on, right? People think, hey, I need to have certain level of expertise baked into the space to get into it, and then it becomes a chicken egg problem, right? So the question is, if there's a 21-year-old getting out of college right now and they want to enter into security space, what would your recommendation be? How do they crack into this space? How did you start your journey into security space? What was that motivation and thought behind why did you want to enter into this space at first place?
Yeah, I think if you're a 21-year-old looking at this space, I would think about it from a not as a functional capability like I want to get into cybersecurity, but think of it from a problem solving for a customer, like pick a vertical, financial services company or a healthcare company, right? When I go to that company, they have people in cyber that are in various groups. They have people in cyber in the field. They have people in cyber in their security operations center. They have people in cyber in their application and development teams, right? So being able to bring that expertise and saying, look, I'll bring that expertise into the field,
Mm-hmm.
and while I'm doing that work, I'm focusing on your cyber problem along with focusing on some other accounting problem or some other technical problem, right? It's always a
Mm-hmm.
great way to start in a customer facing role, because once you are in a customer facing role, you get to learn a lot about what is really working, what is not working, and that informs you of all the innovations that need to be done as well. And as a product management leader, one of my all my best product management hires were almost always people who were sales engineers. They were in the field. They were doing they were hands on, actively engaged with customers in their problems.
Yeah. Customer is the king. You need to be close to the king.
Absolutely, yeah. And you learn a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it gives you a true sense of because sometimes it happens you become so narrowly focused on the problem you're solving, you miss out on the broader picture of what the world wants. Any resources, Ravi, you want to recommend for people maybe who want to enter into security space or who are already in security space, something which you often read or follow, which can help them also develop their understanding better?
Good. There are lots of podcasts where there are good resources, but over the last 2 or 3 years, I've started doing more of like reading a lot of the open source activities that are happening in the marketplace, because I find a lot of open source giving me ideas of problems that are hands-on problems that need to be solved. So I'm always looking for participating in open source projects, contributing to them more so than just reading about something that's been written, right? Certainly lots of blogs are good sources for following the big companies. Blogs are good, but I think to me, find ways to contribute hands-on to open source projects.
I think that's where the future is heading towards, more and more open source projects, and that's how a new space, I think, in general gets developed, right? With the community contributing towards it, and then we figuring out from there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Okay, last two questions, Ravi, before we end. If Ravi was not in the security space, what would be the space where Ravi would be today?
Uh, I'd be a musician.
Whoa, okay. So someday we're gonna get hear something from you coming out.
Yeah, exactly. Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah.
It'll be a lovely one. Last question. If you had to give two, three life quotes or advices which you have got from someone else in your journey, which you wanna share with people out there, what would those be?
I'm always a very pragmatic person, so always the two advices that I've had with from my managers have always been like just go volunteer for opportunities. Don't worry about titles, right? Titles will follow. That's certainly one advice. The other one is product management is the ultimate CEO training ground. If you're aspiring to be a CEO, product management is a perfect place to be a training ground for it.
Mhm. And what better person to hear this from, right? I mean, you started into the software space, product space, have been a seasoned CEO, building things out. So I think that's the best advice anyone can get, and that's the best credible source. We can hear it from anyone. Ravi. So thank you so much, Ravi, for taking out your time and sharing so many things happening in the security space. I know the space itself is very nuanced and very new itself. So some of the terms might sound scary at first, but these are the things we need to start thinking about when we are talking about AI agents, AI security, and whatnot. Because there's one thing where you make more productivity out of these things, but at the same time, you need to find a way of how do you do it in a much more secured manner or a protected manner so that things actually become scalable and sustainable. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts there. We'll keep bringing more such product leaders and thought leaders in this space to talk about AI security, break it down in terms of how our audience can understand it. But this was all from us in today's episode. Keep tuned in for more such exciting episodes coming in the future. And thank you so much, Ravi, again for joining in the podcast.
Great. Thank you for having me on the podcast too.